is that the bill be read a second time, and I give the call to member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I appreciate the opportunity to make a contribution in support of this legislation. And picking up from where the previous speaker spoke from the neighbouring electorate of Hotham, this bill is not some grand experiment. It is simply a recognition of a power that ASIC has asked to try and make sure we strengthen the financial products in the marketplace. The consumers should have to be able to comfortably rely upon, knowing full well that financial products are geared and orientated towards them. Deputy Speaker, I recently had the privilege of serving as the chair of the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Economics, including grilling some of the bank CEOs in the previous fortnight about some of the worrisome cases that have emerged out of the Royal Commission into banks and financial services organisations. And when you go through the Royal Commission's report, it highlights a number of themes, including, of course, explicit examples of where financial institutions have done wrong. I don't think there's anybody in this chamber who thinks that where there is wrong, there shouldn't be recompense and a pathway through remediation and redress. Because when people have what in the end are numbers on pieces of paper, but their livelihoods taken away from them because of misconduct or misjudgment or inappropriate conduct by banks, yes, there's dollars and cents that disappear, but really it's lives and the hard work and earnings of people that disappears. And in fact, the accumulated effort, in often cases many years, particularly when people put their private homes down as the basis of security for them to be able to do things like grow their own business or secure or try and secure a greater sense of opportunity for themselves and their family and for generations to come. But there are other themes that came out of this report from the Royal Commissioner, including challenges and competition. I know during the hearings last week in particular, the member for McKellar raised concerns about what the Royal Commission raised and about whether there needs to be greater injection of competition between the big banks as part of securing a more consumer-orientated financial services system in this country. There was also big questions about the alignment of incentives. So when people within financial services organisations go out into the marketplace and provide products for people, are they acting in the best interests of the consumer, meaning offering them a product that they want, but more critically that they may need, and that then goes on to meet their need? Or are people incentivised to provide products in the marketplace and to sell those products onto consumers based on what delivers them the broker profits, bonuses, and a better financial outcome for themselves at the expense of the consumer? Now, I'm a great believer in the free market, Deputy Speaker. I always have been, and it's not because of some grand ideological obsession, though some people have accused me of that in the past, and I see a South Australian member over there, member for Wakefield, is that right? That's the one who taunts me from the other side. But when you're making a serious point, I'm a great believer in the free market because I think it delivers better for people. Because in the end, when incentives are aligned to deliver an outcome for people, the capital will flow, because ultimately the greatest incentive that any business can meet is consumer demand through goods and services. But when you have malinvestment or misappropriation or misalignment of incentives, you will get a distortion against people. And that's the great task of the people in this chamber, this building, is to make sure that there is an alignment incentive for business and enterprise to grow and prosper because they're delivering the best outcomes for people. That's why the recommendations out of this Royal Commission will be critical, because it actually gives us a pathway of what we seek to redress. But part of the task of doing that, as the Royal Commissioner outlined, in getting the incentives right, having financial products that meet consumer need, the task that's necessary to make sure that we have a banking system that does grease the wheels of our economy, that does build confidence, that does mean that people for the first time are able to go off and buy their own home, that people are able to go off and get the investment finance they need to be able to grow their pie, to create greater opportunity for others, to get the capital that people need to be able to grow their business so that they can take it from an idea to something that may then go on to flourish and blossom, to take the capital they need to go on and employ more people and create greater opportunities for the rest of their fellow citizens. You need a system that has at the anchor on the heart of it is confidence. Confidence for people in this chamber. Confidence because we think they're doing the right thing, but also confidence of the Australian people. And the only way you're going to deliver that is that it be well but lightly regulated, appropriately regulated, targeted in regulation, but also, as the Royal Commissioner has outlined, that rather than going through a discussion around adding in new burdens, it's actually removing complexity so that banks and financial institutions know what they have to do, but equally that there is no excuse. And one of the great, I think, outcomes of the hearings from last week, and I see the Deputy Speaker of the Economic Committee here now, and I hope he would agree with me, is a discussion around if we are to go down the pathway of simplifying regulation in the financial services sector, that there must then also be a complementary discussion about the punitive measures. And I know the Treasurer has taken steps in this area recently as well. Because if you want to build the confidence of the Australian people in the system, that's how you do it, by recognising that firstly there's trade-offs, but also that these companies have to understand that the weight and the eyes of the nation are upon them and that we trust them to do a critical and important role, but that we expect them with great power and great concentration of power, as market power as exists in the banking sector, comes with a great responsibility. And I don't think that's unreasonable whatsoever. I don't want to see people doing the wrong thing, and I would hope that culture within these organisations should not be geared towards doing the wrong thing either. And so, yes, we have a bill before us that focuses on what we can do to make sure that financial service instruments and products are more consumer-oriented. It enables the regulator to take appropriate action to make sure that there is transparency in the marketplace so that financial products deliver what consumers reasonably expect. It's not a particularly radical proposition, but it's clearly a timely one. And the question for us now is where we go from here. I know there's a lot of partisan politics around different views of things like the Banking Royal Commission. Let's just accept it. And, occasionally you'll get howls and crows from the members on the other side saying, why weren't you this or why weren't you that? And that will be, one day I'm sure will comfortably be returned. Don't worry, we're not done with you yet. Sorry, Deputy Speaker. When I say you, I don't mean you, I mean the member for Wakefield. But the question now is, how do we as a parliament rebuild a sense of confidence at the heart of our economic system? And that's what this legislation is seeking to address, not in isolation, but as a critical part of rebuilding the confidence in the regulatory system so that ASIC can do its job. Because I know that the Royal Commission also highlighted question marks about how they were doing their role. There are differences of opinion amongst members about whether the burden and the obligation, the volume of work they have, and yes, sometimes there's debates around resources as well, raises the question about whether regulators can do their task. But when they come to us and say we need a power to be able to do our job better, we don't take it on face value because I'm not a big fan of independent regulators, it's the truth, but our task then is to at least seriously consider the consequences, the benefits, and whether we should go through it. And that's what we're doing in this piece of simple legislation today as a result of the financial system inquiry. and that it recommend the introduction of a design and distribution obligations and product intervention power so as to improve design and distribution practices and allow interventions to be made where there is a significant consumer detriment. So it's a bill that should be welcomed. It should be a bill that's the standard or the foundation of potentially more to come. And it should be part of a package of what we do in this place, absent the concerns of partisan politics, to focus on what we need to do to have the financial service system that this country needs to build, to grease the next stage of economic development of our nation's future. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.